Thank you for joining us for this sermon podcast from United Church on the Green, located in New Haven, Connecticut. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are invited and welcome. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to learn more about our open and affirming ministry at United Church on the Green, please visit our website at unitednewhaven.org. Thank you.
Our scripture reading this morning comes from the book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 40 through 45. A man with leprosy came and knelt in front of Jesus, begging to be healed. "If you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean," he said. Moved with compassion, Jesus reached out and touched him. "I am willing," he said. "Be healed." Instantly, the leprosy disappeared and the man was healed. Then Jesus sent him on his way with a stern warning. "Do not tell anyone about this. Instead, go to the priest and let him examine you. Take along the offering required in the law of Moses for those who have been healed of leprosy. This will be a public testimony that you have been cleansed." But the man went and spread the word, proclaiming to everyone what had happened. As a result, large crowds soon surrounded Jesus, and he could not publicly enter a town anywhere. He was forced to stay out in secluded places, but people from everywhere kept coming to him. God is still speaking. May our hearts be open to listen, understand, and learn. God in my head and in my understanding. God
Good morning, and will you join me in a moment of prayer? Holy One, we know that you are ever present, but ask that you first of all grant peace within ourselves. To each a singleness of eye, a purity of intention, so that these words of mine reflect your invitation to wholeness and healing justice within your creation. Amen. So we're all untethered from the truth. Now, I'm not talking about the line we heard earlier this week, but I may refer to it again. What I want to talk about is that yesterday 3 people died. The day before, another 3 people died. And the day before that, still yet another 3 people, and so on, and so on, and so forth. In fact, in 2016, more than 42,000 deaths from opioid misuse were reported across the United States. Or another way to look at it, frankly, is that every 3 weeks, more people die from overdosing than the number of people who died on 9/11. Let that sink in for a moment. Think about it. More people die every 3 weeks in this country than the number who died on 9/11. Nearly 1,000 residents of the state of Connecticut died last year from drug overdose. Opioids, prescription and illicit, are the main driver of drug overdose deaths in this country. Opioids were involved in some 42,249 deaths in 2016, 64,000 in 2017, and we're well on our way to beating that in 2018. Drug overdoses have claimed more lives in 2017 than in all the years of Vietnam. Although I doubt there will be a memorial to all who have suffered and died from overdose. Opioid overdose deaths were 5 times higher in 2016 than in 1999. And in the state of West Virginia, for instance, which has the highest death rate of any state in this country, in fact, 35.5 deaths per 100,000 people, it doesn't have a single treatment program. Not a single one. And every day, emergency personnel know the neighborhoods all too well that they will be visiting. And this epidemic keeps growing every day. The nameless individuals I'm talking about come from every demographic, every race, every ethnicity, gender identity, sexual identity, and every age. It is decimating communities and families across the country, and it is decimating communities and families right here in New Haven and in the state. It's a public health crisis, not a drug crisis, or a just say no morality play, or a failure to live up to the 12 steps that you might be trying to transverse. It's a crisis that's been created by a confluence of many factors, including overprescriptions of pain medication by health professionals, pharmaceutical companies who develop drugs for pain and need to sell them, insurance companies that refuse to pay for certain kinds of medicated assisted treatment but are more than happy to pay for your prescription, any of the oxys. Illegal overseas markets. Fentanyl is coming into this country and is the #1 killer, along with heroin, in the opioid crisis. Social media, so-called dark web, which I've never seen, but social media offer drug-related communities to anyone who logs on and will help you buy those illicit drugs. Oh, we're so untethered from the truth. But for a moment, I want to take a step back to Mark. Now, I actually happen to love the Gospel of Mark. It's really short. And you see John in that first chapter, he's going to get get baptized, and then he's going to baptize Jesus, and then about a day later, Jesus is wandering around Galilee, and then he's healing this one, and he's preaching to that one, and you would think that it was like a 3-day journey across Galilee and Nazareth that Jesus has. It would not make the New York Times bestseller list. There's really no character development. There's no plot development. It's very short, sweet, specific, and to the point. So let's look at this passage. Leprosy is a contagious disease affecting the skin, mucous membranes, and nerves, which cause discoloration and lumps on the skin. In severe cases, it causes disfigurement and deformities. You may lose your feeling. It's a nerve disease. In India, it is not unusual for people to have their fingers and toes bitten by rats, but they never felt them. It's mildly contagious and is today considered a chronic infectious disease. What? A chronic infectious disease? How polite and sanitized we have come. In biblical times, an individual with leprosy was considered unclean and outcast. In fact, Leviticus dedicates 2 entire chapters to the cleansing of leprosy. The priest shall look at the mark on the skin of the body, and if the hair in the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of the body, it is an infection. When the priest has looked at him or her, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. The leper has to wear torn clothes, his hair must hang loose, and she shall cover up her upper lip and cry, "Unclean, unclean," so no one comes close. The leper must dwell alone outside of the camp. Leprosy was greatly feared, not simply because of the physical damage done to the body, but also because of the strict isolation laws making the man or woman feel like feared outcasts. In short, the leper was society's outcast, or to put it another way, leprosy was seen as an attribute that was deeply discrediting and reduced the bearer from a whole and usual person to a tainted, discredited one. And imagine for just a moment, you are with Jesus in this story, and Jesus has been traveling in Galilee and the surrounding region, and there are 3 significant healings before Jesus meets the leper. The first is Simon's mother-in-law, who is described as being very sick. And then he heals those who were possessed of demons and more who are sick. The story of the leper, however, is far more detailed and specific, where the others lack any such specificity. In Mark, there's a lesson. It's pretty easy to picture this guy huddled in the dust, outcast and begging. But now, instead of Galilee, I just want to move our story a little closer to home. Let's go over to the green. On the green, there are huddled individuals in torn clothes and hair hanging loose. There are also people who look just like you or me, but no one touches them. They are outcasts because they're addicted. Jesus touches this filthy, dirty, wild man who is covered in lumps and oozing raw skin. His clothes are torn, his hair unwashed and unbound, and his life is one of isolation and loneliness. I fear he must have been a sight to behold. Frankly, sensible eyes would have looked up or down or sideways. Jesus, however, simply says, "Be clean." That's all. And the leper was cleansed. For Mark, the pivotal moment is asking to be cleansed, not simply healed of the disease, because becoming clean is far more than becoming healed. Now, it's pretty obvious where I'm heading this meditation this morning. Just as leprosy is a chronic disease, so is addiction. Addiction is a chronic, relapsing disease, just like diabetes, frankly. It isn't a moral failure or a lesson in sinful living. You don't shun the diabetic every time he or she has birthday cake and champagne. Rather, we understand the chronic nature of diabetes, and we work with the diabetic to reshift our thinking and theirs and eating patterns. We also use medication. Yes, there may be a relapse, but no one calls the diabetic unclean. No one outcasts them. They're not unworthy. The best treatment for this chronic disease called addiction is medicated assisted treatment. We know that relapse happens far less often when individuals are treated with medications, and the least expensive one is methadone. No one that I know or you know gets up in the morning wanting to be an addict. No one gets up looking forward to a day of being shunned on the green. Jesus of our story is moved by compassion and pity. To be clear, being unclean is to be separated from others, separated from God. Being unclean is to be left alone. Being an outcast is to be separated from holy love. To be tethered to something is to be restrained by a rope or a chain or other line securing the object. If you don't tether a boat in a hurricane, well, we all know what's going to happen to that boat. It'll disappear, it'll be smashed. It'll be broken into 1,000 pieces. To be tethered to the truth of the story means that we are held tightly by the rope of Jesus' compassion and mercy to the outcast leper. We have become untethered from so many truths. We turn our eyes away. We pass judgment on those we call unclean. The so-called addict is today's leper. Until we practice the very same compassion Jesus has practiced in the very same way, we will remain untethered from holy love and holy healing. Oh, I brought you a gift this morning. This is called Narcan, naloxone. I'm going to leave it here at the church because at any moment, any day, you will see someone who falls to the ground, whose breathing slows down so much, they will die unless given this antidote. You can get them free at CVS or Walgreens. You can come to any treatment center and get naloxone, or Narcan. And any one of us can give it to someone who is dying from an opioid-induced coma. Get your own. You never know when you might need it. And it'll be here in the church, because we are called to compassion and mercy on all who surround us.